All right, let's take a look at lesson 5.8. Lesson 5.8 is about solving multiplication equations that have fractions or mixed numbers in them. And just like before, I think it was chapter 3 where we worked on solving multiplication equations. Okay? Like 3a equals 12. And we learned that if you have a number in front of the variable, that number is called the what? I shortened it here. What does that stand for? The coefficient of a. If there's a number in front of the variable, that's called the coefficient. Whenever you have a coefficient other than 1, you have to use multiplication by the reciprocal of the coefficient in order to solve it. So look at this first example. 5a equals 1/7. 5 is the coefficient. So we're going to write this as a fraction first. This is something new that we have not done yet. 5a, the whole number 5 can be written as a fraction as 5 over 1. 5 over 1. A. Does everybody see how these are equal? 5 and 5 over 1 are the same number, aren't they? It's just that 5 over 1 is written in the fraction form, right? Then we need to multiply both sides in order to get the variable by itself, in order for it to be just a 1a. So we have to multiply by the reciprocal of the coefficient. We said the coefficient is 5 over 1, so multiply by 1 over 5. And cross out those reciprocals. Right? You with me so far? Whatever you multiply on one side, you have to multiply on the other side. We multiplied by 1/5 on this side, so we have to multiply by 1/5 on the other side. And now you have a fraction multiplication. Two fractions multiplied. 1 times 1 is 1. 7 times 5 is 35. So a is 1 over 35. Now, we can check that. Let me redo the check for you so that you can see how this checks. When we're checking this equation, we want to use 5 over 1 times a. What did we say a is? No, a is not the coefficient. What did we say that the solution for this is? What's the solution? 1 over 35. So we'll use that number for a, 1 over 35. And then the rest of the equation, 1/7. Does that check? Does 5 over 1 times 1 over 35 equal 1 over 7? Yeah, because we can reduce 5 and 35 to 1/7. And when you multiply, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 7 is 7. So that's how you need to check the multiplication equations. Let's go with a mixed number, or fractions. Starting with fractions. Step 1 in these is to convert all the numbers to fraction form. So whenever you have an equation with a fraction in it, or a mixed number in it, you need to change it to fraction form. Okay? If it's a whole number, just write it as a fraction. 5 over 1. If it's a mixed number, you'll have to change it to a top-heavy fraction. 1 times 8 plus 5 is 13 over 8. 13/8. Or in this case, negative 13/8. Okay, everybody with me so far? Remember how to change those? Now, we have to use the reciprocal of negative 13/8. And since we need a positive n, the reciprocal is also going to be what? Negative. This is negative 8 over 13. Negative 13 over 8 and negative 8 over 13 are what? They're reciprocals. See, 8 and 8, 13 and 13, right across from each other. These would all cancel out to be positive 1. Right? So we have to use this as our reciprocal. Multiply it on this side to get positive n. And then multiply it on the other side. Remember, we're writing this as a fraction. 26 over 1 times negative 8 over 13. Then we can reduce this to 26 and 13 is 2 over 1. So we're multiplying 2 times negative 8 to get our solution. N equals negative 16. Okay? So, the process that we're doing is the same process we did before in chapter 2 or chapter 3. It's just that the numbers are harder. The numbers are using fractions and mixed numbers, and so we're taking some of those skills that you did in 6th grade in converting these to a fraction, finding the reciprocals, changing this to a top-heavy fraction first, and then flipping it over to use the reciprocal. And we're doing that along with the process of solving the equation, multiplying by a number on both sides. Okay? Let's look at number 1 on your worksheet for today. 8x equals 12. This one should look familiar. This is exactly like the type of question we did in chapter 3. But now let's rewrite it and use the fraction form. So if we have this as our coefficient 8x, how could we write that as a fraction? 8 over 1. So right underneath it, write 8 over 1x equals 12 over 1. Okay. Then, what would we multiply? What's the reciprocal of 8 over 1?
1 over 8.
1 over 8. Let's multiply this. I'm going to put parentheses around the 1 over 8. Multiply by 1 over 8. Multiply the other side by 1 over 8. You have to multiply by the same number on both sides. Reduce this fraction. 12 and 8 can be reduced to 3 and 2, right? 4 goes in 12 3 times. 4 goes into 8 2 times. The 8's cross out on this side. We have to cross out those reciprocals. And you're left with 1x equals 3 halves. Or 1 and 1/2. Yep, we could reduce that to 1 and 1/2. Go ahead and copy that down for number 1. Might as well get started on your assignment. Let's do number 2 together. So you have the work for number 2. This one already has fractions in it. So we don't have to convert the numbers to fractions. We're going to use the fractions that are given. There we go. So 1/2 x equals 3/4. Underneath it, you can put the parentheses around the number that's given. Or you can put the parentheses around the number you're multiplying by. 2 over 1. As long as there's parentheses that are separating these, we're showing the multiplication. Cross off the reciprocals, so we're left with 1x. And then multiply on the other side. Reduce 2 over 4 to 1/2. Right? And then multiply 3 times 1. And 2 times 1. So x equals 3/2 again. Let's check this one. How would we check it? Write the check underneath on your worksheet. Write the original number, 1/2. 1/2 is in the worksheet. Do you have a worksheet, Isaac? Okay. Yep, you have to show your work on the worksheet so I can see it. Okay. 1/2. Then the solution times 3/2. Does that equal 3/4? Does that equal 3/4?
Yep.
Yep. So write true. Okay. What if you got false? What would you need to do? Redo the problem. Yeah. Pick one more that we should do together, that you want me to do together. Pick one more.
10.
10?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do 10 together. Okay? Let's do 10 together, and then you do the rest for homework. Number 10. So negative 1. Whoops. Negative 1 2/3. And that is k equals 4 1/6. Alright, we can do this. Step 1, convert them all to fraction form. So, times and plus. So that's negative 5/3. Okay? Stop talking, just listen. Negative 5/3 k equals 25/6. Now, multiply by the reciprocal. Negative 3/5. We have to use a negative times a negative to get positive k. Right? Cross out the 5s, cross out the 3s. Then multiply by negative 3/5 on the other side. Make sure that you always look at and see if you have to use that negative sign. Don't miss that negative sign. Especially, I know some of you will write this negative sign and you'll almost attach it to the bar, and then you'll miss it at the end. Okay? Make that a negative sign. So you know your answer is going to be negative. And we can reduce this to 6 and 3, 1 and 2, 25 and 5, 5 and 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? So k is negative 5 over 2. Now, when you're checking this, class, instead of using the original problem and then having to change it to a fraction again, to check it, use the top-heavy fraction that you already found. Okay, so write the check. There we go. Let's use this color. So, the check. We converted this to negative 5 over 3. Then we put in the solution for k times negative 5 over 2. And that should equal 25 over 6. Positive 25 over 6, right? Does that check? Negative, negative, positive. 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 2 is 6. Ooh. Any questions? All right, finish this worksheet and make sure that you show your work and check each one. Okay?